Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Up the Dale and part 2 of our 2015 Champions season review. In part 1, we looked at the first half of the season with special guests Alex Hines and Scott Newton. And tonight, as well as my usual co-host, Mr. David Maguire, we are joined by the captain of the team that year, Sean Keeley. Evening, Sean.
Hi, everybody.
And Mr. Sam Bolton, who has joined us before, so he is a familiar face to some who have watched the podcast. Sam was also a part of that 2015 team. Good evening, Sam.
Doing all right.
Not too bad. Well, what we'll do, just to start off with, I just want to touch on that first half of the season. Obviously, you two haven't had a chance to comment on that because you weren't involved in that part. But just if you can, Kez, if you can start first, just one memory that you can maybe pick out of that first half of the season that you remember.
Yeah, it's quite difficult actually because having, as you know, I did a bit of research and watched the podcast back, and I thought Andy and Scott and yourself sort of summed the season up very, very well the first half of the season, and it was one where every game there was something in it, and sort of refreshing myself. It's very hard to pick a memory out. What I would say is in that first half, it was a bit of a roller coaster in terms of games called off, a couple of losses, some really good wins. So it was sort of an up and down first half. But as I was saying to you, you know, the Leyland game actually that got rained off was the interesting one because they were a side that we always sort of struggled against, so really tough games against. And that day, for me, we showed them that we were a much better side and we'd come on leaps and bounds from the season before. So even though it was called off and frustrating, that was when I thought, you know what, we've got a good side here, a good bunch of lads, and that was quite early on in the season. So I think that set us up.
Excellent. Sam, is there anything that you can remember from that first half that stands out to you?
Obviously, we probably got a decent team together and what have you. But like I said, there were probably a few bumps in the road early on. I think, like I said, we had a couple of no results, maybe certainly one no result, a couple of defeats, and we probably looked to kick on the second half of the season. But I think we played New Longton away, second game of the season. I think we made 230 odd, and I think we were possibly in about 42 overs, something like that. And at that point, I thought, Isaac got 100, so he got off to a good start. I think everybody chipped in with wickets and runs, apart from myself and a few others. But it's not often you make 233, especially in middle of April, end of April. So at that point, I probably thought, really, we've got a decent team here. If we can stick at it, kick on, and we'll have a decent chance. So the rest of them, first half season, a bit of a much of a muchness. I can't really remember too much about them, but certainly that New Longton game was one that you thought we're half decent here.
Yeah, excellent. Well, the first half of the season took us up to the end of June, and that was exactly half a season. And we'll start where we started the first half of the season, but away to Freckleton. And whilst it was a relatively low-scoring affair, again, as Kez has touched on, there was something on a lot of these matches, and this Freck one had a couple of incidents in it. I'm just going to open it up for myself. So Freck won the toss and elected to bat first, and made 123 all out. However, that doesn't tell the full story. We were talking about with Ainsley and Scott some of the characters that we faced that season, and one of which got mentioned was Frank Holden. Now, Frank, as we mentioned, is a hell of a competitor, but I think after this game, we'd actually got to be quite friendly with Frank. And does anybody actually remember the incident that happened in this game with Frank? Frank went on to get 41, but it was 41 over two separate innings, if you like.
Yeah, both in eye.
Yeah, it was your brother, wasn't it? Who I can't remember whether
surprise.
Yeah, I was surprised. I mean, we were talking about James pace in the first part, and James really did have some pace behind him that year, and he could get life out of a wicket when maybe there wasn't for others. And I think that was potentially the case this time because if I remember, I don't think it was potentially a short ball. I think Frank just got one that reared on him a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I do remember it. when I was looking back, actually. And, you know, I'd known Frank for a number of years in terms of, he used to work for Lancashire County Council, as did I, and we had a cricket side, and he was sort of the organiser for that. So I'd known him for a long time, and he was a real competitor, you know, and he just loves the game, doesn't he? And he was one of those that would never give his wicket away. You know, and that day, Jake bowled really, really well. He took 3 really early wickets, and it looked like this was going to be a bit of a walk in the park, to be fair. But Frank, being typical Frank, sort of dug in. You know, and even though he took that blow to the head, he was still there, wasn't he, giving it his all? So it was interesting, that first innings. And then obviously the other old Morton Freckleton that we'd come against, Pete Ingham, he also had a really good knock that day, didn't he? And actually got him up to what was a decent score and not a great wicket.
Yeah, I think from my memory of it, obviously Frank had to go off for a while to stem the blood and came back on. But by that point, as you said, the other Pete Ingham, not our Pete Ingham, he was if I remember rightly, he was a bit of a character, a bit of a weird guy. He was very talkative, very out there.
Yeah.
And he got 34 off 42 balls. And I've got to say, my memory of it is that it felt like it was a bit quicker than that. He got 6 balls, and I think it seemed to be a bit of a crash bang wallop innings. And we discussed last week a certain James Ainscough. Yes, we discussed his batting, but we also discussed, Kez, your use of him in a role that we would say is a partnership breaker. Others would call it buying a wicket. And and he got 2. One was Frank, who was 41, and one was Pete Ingham, who got 34, the 2 main batsmen. And go on, talk me through a captain's perspective of how you used Ernie's bowling.
Well, I think me and Sam used to talk a lot, you know, both on the field and off the field about, you know, different things. And if things weren't going well and you've been through all your bowlers, you know, give somebody else a chuck, because people like Frank and Pete, they've been around the block. They probably know you guys, and they know who's bowling at them. They get used to it. They've never seen somebody chuck pies like Ernie. So, you know, and to be fair to Ernie, he did used to turn it if he could land it, but that was quite rare, to be honest. But yeah, it was one of those days. We're not getting any joy here. Chuck Ernie the ball, and you know that paid off on that day. And we could have been looking at a lot more chasing down, which, you know, we may have struggled with. So it wasn't a good wicket. I remember that. When we turned up, we thought that looked horrendous.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it was chucking the ball, see what it can do. And we did that a few times, actually, and he got a few wickets that season, like pretty vital wickets, really.
So as Kez has said, Sam, you know, Ernie was rolled out to break partnerships. You were somebody who was a part-time bowler who didn't bowl very much that season. How did it affect you?
Yeah, upset me. No, he bowled all right that day, and he bit of filth and got a couple of wickets. Frank was one of them old pros that always did all right against you. I think he got about 100 odd runs against us that year. Freck were a team that in the past were a bit of a thorn in our side. Like, I think Ainsley touched upon it last week. He said we've been in that division for 4 or 5 years, and Freck used to get the wood on us a little bit. So subsequently, at the end of this game, obviously we beat him twice that year. But yeah, Ernie coming on, getting a bit of filth out and getting 2 big wickets was important for us that day.
We move on to the batting, and Ainsley with another 50, unsurprisingly for somebody who broke the league record that year, another decent score. Curtis 48 not out off 37 balls. Again, a very Curtis-like innings, but again, we touched on it for the Torrizone game at the back end of that, you know, that last part, in terms of we were going out there with this, I wouldn't say we can't lose attitude, but if we're going to do this, we're going to do it in an attacking way. And clearly Curtis went about it that way on that day. However, my recollection is that we were 5 down. And I sort of get this feeling that we felt a bit edgy towards the end. And Sam, you were in at the end with Curtis. And I have this feeling of it was almost like a bit of a relief to get over the line. Can you remember how you and Curtis were like in the middle at that point?
I think, no. No, I think they brought a decent bowler back on. Was it the opening bowler?
It could well have been. Well,
Was it Bobby? Bobby
Bithell, yeah.
Yeah, they brought a decent bowler back. Was he a first team bowler?
Could well have been, yeah.
Yeah, they brought a decent bowler back, and we didn't need many to win. Maybe 15, 20, say. And I remember just thinking, give Curtis as much strike. I wouldn't have got many, I never did, but I probably got maybe 4, 5, and it was off a few. I remember just giving Curtis strike. Curtis is a better player than me. If he's 40 on that high, you might as well give him strike. But yeah, he was good. Not Hines obviously got Hines quality, and but Curtis saw his own really. But I think did Jake not get a few wickets in that first innings? He got about 6.
Jake got 6 for that day, and yeah, I have to say that. I think, as Kez said, I think if I remember rightly, that we looked at the pitch and I think it looked a bit patchy. It was hard enough. It was a lovely day if I remember rightly, but I think it was a real patchy wicket, and I think we were a bit surprised that they wanted to bat first. But I think that probably played on our mind when we were batting, in terms of we're not going to let the wicket try and affect it. Let's get there quickly, and clearly we did. And yeah, it was another one ticked off, as Sam said, a side that in the past have done us over a little bit, and we've done the double on them. And I think at this stage, confidence is starting to grow, and clearly the tide is turning. And Dave, we talked about last week in terms of your impression from the second team and how things were feeling. At this stage, clearly, that's half a season gone, the first match, the second half, and things are looking good.
Yeah, I think it was probably something people would have sort of sat up and taken note of. Just reflecting last week, we spoke about there was the defeat against Thornton Cleveland, which I think everybody said generally all round it was a really bad performance, and some honest words were had in the changing rooms afterwards. And then if you include that Freckleton game, they went on 5 wins in a row up to that point. They won the next 5 after Thornton Cleveland. So, and then including, the games after, it was the middle of a really good run. And, it was sort of that point where, everybody's obviously noticing, week after week, 12 points in the bag. And, it was turning into a really promising period and season at the halfway point.
Yeah, I think just a quick one so we can move on to the next game. What I would say is that where we'd got to is previously, if we had lost a couple of quick wickets, we could fold like a pack of cards, and that's just being honest about it. But what we started to build is that actually your likes of Sam, your likes of Nazis, your likes of G's batting lower down, followed by maybe an Aney or a Hines or a Curtis that was still there, made us have some more confidence. So games like Freckleton in the past, we would have probably lost. So I think Neil's right. I remember sitting on the boundary on a plastic chair thinking, we'll probably end up losing this game. Now Hines is gone somehow. And we didn't. And the more we went on throughout the season, actually, myself and all the other guys, we started to trust in each other that we get there some way or another. And that was one of those games.
And I think we'll see that later on. I know there's a couple of games later on, and I don't want to boost Sam's ego more than it might already be after his 62 not out at the weekend. But
it's virtual 62 now.
Virtual runs, yeah. We better make that.
It's a shame it's not real life,
But I think
so picking up on that, though, picking up on what Kez said then, I think after the first 5 games, we batted like 3 times first. And I think out of the whole season, I can't remember us batting too many times first. Whether we lost toss and got the opposition will be batting, or we won the toss and stuck them in.
Yeah.
I think we only, you'll have to check it, but I think we only batted first 4 times in the 20 games that we actually played, 2 rained off.
Yeah.
I think that's how it worked out, which for a team that was laid in with like Aney, Curtis, Hines, Kez, a lot of batting, you seem a bit strange, wasn't it? But we were that sort of confident in chasing and that strong in bowling that it just seemed to be our bag really, and everybody would want to bat first.
I think so, and I think you're absolutely great point that, Sam. And I think one of the main reasons was to get back to the boozer a little bit quicker. No, but on a serious note, that's what I felt once we were laden with batters. But the way we batted was so aggressively that actually knowing what target we were going after allowed us to play our natural game as a group of players. So it felt the right way to go. Generally. And we had such a strong bowling attack, and we took a lot of wickets early doors that, you know, and we had the mop at the end. So, you know, it seemed the right thing to do more often than not.
So we then moved on to New Longton at home, to which we won the toss and elected to field, much like we've been talking about previously in terms of being much more comfortable chasing scores. And in a way, it's a very similar scoreline, just a little bit more runs than the Fret game, in such that New Longton 154 all out to Wantleydale's 155 for 6. So it's not as if we knocked it off, you know, without losing a few wickets, as we discussed previously. And so in the New Longton innings, Bazir Pepe 32, Bob Woodcock, who we know from previous games, 40, were their main two batsmen, and mostly just chipping in and getting them up to 154. Bowling wise, Jake Bolton 4 for 29, myself 3 for 20, and a certain Samuel Bolton. So you did get a chuck. 2 for 18.
So if Sam could rescind that comment from the previous game, that'd be great.
So I mean, I've got to say, I don't really remember an awful lot about this game at all, if I'm being honest. Anything from you two that stands out from this game?
I think again it was a case of again Jake making inroads early doors again, and again us sort of struggling a little bit in the middle section to pick up wickets, very similar to the Fret game.
Yeah.
But I remember JT bowled a really good spell. He didn't take wickets, but he kept the scoring rate really low. And then that was the time when I thought, well, we need to mix it up, and gave Sam a chuck, and he obviously managed to make the breakthroughs, which often happened that season again. So that's what I remember from the first innings, really.
I think, like you say, it's another case of, we discussed last week where I think you and Ernie had a chuck in one game, Kez. And I think, you know, it shows the all-round ability of the team that, you know, whoever was given the ball, whoever had the responsibility for knocking the runs off, people always stood up that season to fulfil whatever role they were given. And I think, you know, seeing Sam taking those couple of, like you said, Bob Woodcock, key wicket, who was on 40, you know, key responsibilities and people standing up. And so, yeah, it's good to see that that's the case. And that was part of the reason why we were so successful. Batting wise, Mr. Hines only 29 this week, but then you've got Ernie coming in and getting 71. And again, almost backing up what I'm saying from a bowling perspective, but from a batting perspective. Sam, I just want to touch on something with you, what we were discussing about the Fret game and people having that responsibility to seeing the game home. Yourself and Scott, only 8 not out apiece, but again, that middle to lower order, holding that responsibility to see the team over the line.
Yeah, it's a lot easier if you're doing it when you've only 20 to win or whatever than 50-60 to win. It's a bit more of a challenge, isn't it? I think Ernie got plenty that day. Did he? What did he get, Ernie?
71.
Yeah, so Ernie's done the damage on a 150 chase, and then obviously you know if I'm at 6 and Scott's at 7 or 7 and 8, whatever, you're in there to score runs. So I didn't really get many runs that year. I was sort of chipped in a little bit. You know, I ended up with a lot of not outs or did not bat. But when it's your time to sort of see your team home, you've got to do it a bit. But Andy would have done the damage as a.
But I think what we touched on before,
little shit that he was.
I think what we touched on before then, what Kez mentioned in terms of, I think the previous season, maybe we would have tumbled a little bit at that stage, and even though it was only 8 apiece for you two, that has seen us home. Whereas if another wicket falls, then do we capitulate? And I think in previous seasons, I think possibly we did do that in some cases. And I think, you know, at this point, we're now starting to feel like a really solid unit and getting over the line. So
I think that was down to the selection committee, Neil, because what we've done that year is obviously there was a huge focus on potentially getting the main team, which is the first team, as high as you possibly can. Now, you mentioned Paul Williams last week, didn't you?
Yeah.
Paul came in a few games here and there. I remember every time we needed a keeper, it was always Andy Shorrock, not me, which I was more than happy with. So it was always pick your best for what you've got. And the seconds actually struggled that year. They finished near the bottom. And that was a reflection of obviously the first team sort of handpicking the better players for those games. So we always had strength in batting and bowling that season.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a really good point, and I know we're pressed for time, but it is a great point that Sam's raised, and that's what I felt was one of the main differences being captain, that we worked really well as a club and a whole unit that season in actually prioritising, and it didn't become what can become quite a difficult situation where it becomes first versus seconds, and we don't care about the first, we don't care about the seconds. But I felt that season there was a bit of a change in what I'd experienced previously, I would say, and we all worked together as a club to achieve the goals that we were looking for, which was really great. And you know that we couldn't have done it without the support of you know, some good lads in that second team.
We're going to move on from that New Longton game to one that was because you talked about Leyland being a thorn in our side, quite a special game for us. We travelled to the wonderful Wellfield High School, and it's never an easy game to go and play at Wellfield. The decks aren't the best at all, but to say it was an outright victory was a gross understatement. Again, we won the toss and elected to field, a recurring pattern. Leyland 101 all out off 34 overs. Waltleydale 102 for none. Just a crushing victory, really. And I'm gonna stick my oar in at this point. I can remember this stage of the season, me and you having a little falling out.
I remember this.
This was the stage of the season that I'd been pretty consistent bowling, and for some reason a certain Mac Morris was being given the ball ahead of me, and I've got to say this was one of my few times where I threw my toys out of the pram. However, looking back on it now, you do feel a bit foolish because you're saying that after a game that we've smashed the team all out 101 and knocked them off for none. But
can I just jump in, Neil? Not only was a certain Mac Morris given a chuck ahead of yourself, there was a certain Sam Bolton first change,
yeah, incredibly, yeah.
Now, I don't know what Kez had been smoking that week, but he'd obviously gone for a bold decision, which was nothing on my behalf, I must admit. I remember you giving me daggers from mid-on, thinking, oh my goodness, what am I doing first change?
Yeah, I honestly, I've wrapped my brains because I find it interesting, because it's a really odd one, and I can't understand what the reasons have been. And as you look back, obviously the second half of the season, Neil obviously took a lot of wickets, you know, and it was I did start. I think what I was trying to do, and we were rolling teams out quicker than expected. So what I was trying to do is save Neil to get 6 to 8 overs at the end of the innings and clean it up, because I knew we could do that.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I can't explain it. I think one of the things I said to Sam actually earlier, being honest, and it is difficult as a captain when you're managing a group of amateur sports players who you all want to give them a turn, and you've got friends in there, etc. That's very difficult. And I think generally I did it fairly as I could do. But sometimes I think I did leave certain bowlers on a bit too long, because it was easier to do that, give them another couple of overs, and then suddenly you're running out of time when you've got 5 or 6 bowlers. It can be tough. So I can't understand why I did that, but I obviously learnt my lesson and started using Neil a lot more and handed to him, and that's another story.
Yeah, but Kez, if you look at the figures, it was 6 overs, 1 maiden, 1 for 8 for myself. So it was an inspired decision. So no wonder you left Neil out.
You'd got Bob Woodcockers out the week before. So
Can't disagree with
I
it.
was
Absolutely
quickly,
can't disagree.
I was quickly put back to first slip after that.
But
No, so it was. It's a good point, Neil, and I think that day, from what I remember, Leyland, the side they had out was a little bit weaker, probably, in all fairness, than what we'd come up against in the past. However, they still had a good ball in attack. So I think we did ball well, but they had a poor batting lineup, in my opinion, that day. But batting wise, that was the only time I really had a good knock that season, by my own admission. I don't know why that was that year. I'd had a couple of good seasons beforehand. Maybe it was focusing on the captaincy. I don't know. But I do remember that day well, and it was a brilliant feeling to beat Leyland at Wellfield because they did have a good ball in attack. It was always difficult against Laws and against Sefton. So we saw them off early on, and then it became really easy. But that was another landmark sort of victory, I would say, against Leyland at Wellfield.
I completely agree. And looking at the team, yeah, they did have a weaker team out, but you're spot on. Having Sifton Prince and Loz Shackleton opening up, Loz had absolutely steamrolled us previously, and he's going at nearly 5 and over there. And yeah, it just went to show what a crushing performance it was. Yourself 54, Ainsey 42, and once again we're in the pub early, and like you say, maybe a statement victory, albeit to a weakened side. Again on the way in that second half of the season. So absolutely,
That's when I thought we won league. After that,
so that was your statement victory at that point.
I thought. Dave mentioned we were five wins out of 5 or something like that. I thought we would have played 14 games after that. I thought we've won this here. Because everybody got wickets. Leyland won that league, didn't they? The year before, was it the year before?
Yeah.
The year before that.
Year before,
I thought that's it, done and dusted.
Just so that was a real good thing to move on to. We then played Charnock Richard at home, and as we talked about in the first part, the first match at Charnock Richard, you two didn't play in because you were off on your jollies. And it was a little bit of a contentious game. So to come back, and again, a really convincing victory. Charnock Richard, again, put in first, recurring pattern, and obviously something we felt comfortable doing. 109 all out. Really, only Mark Eastham, who got the wickets against us in the first game, got 41 for him. So nearly half of their runs. Curtis, 5 for 27 in this game. Standout performance with the ball. I myself wasn't playing, and Waltley Dale in reply 113 for 4, so a few more wickets than the Leyland game, but great all-round performance by Curtis, 61, 10 4s and 3 6s again in real quick time, and just a real solid performance all round. Any memories from you guys of that one?
Yeah, I just remember, and I hated. I had a choice, but you've got to get your holidays in. But I hated missing those games that season. We had some great times away. Don't get me wrong, but it was sad because I remember the season before I'd played every single game, and I wanted to do the same, knowing that we were going for the title. But it doesn't always happen like that. I remember being really, really disappointed, actually, when you lose a game, when you're away, because there's nothing you can do to stop that. But I remember there was some friction and thinking, what's gone on whilst we've not been away, and it was worrying because there was me and Sam away who, whilst we're not the most sensible, we kept a lid on things more often than not. And obviously with you being away as well, Neil, I thought, Jesus Christ, what the hell's going to go on here?
Yeah.
And truth be known, something did go on.
Yeah. Well, obviously Sam was captain that day, so a nice calm head on the field. It was reasonably speaking a convincing performance, Sam, and again we got a little bit of revenge for the loss in the first half of the season, and again this roller coaster is starting to build now, and the roll's on.
Yeah, I remember thinking this could get a little bit tasty, this game, but it never really occurred. We were better than them and what have you. I think, what did we ball them out for? 120 odd, did you say?
109.
109, so 109 all out, and what would we knock it down?
113.
109, 113 for 4. So pretty comfortable. What I do remember from that game is that we mentioned Jake and his competitiveness. Now, obviously, being brothers, not always do you see eye to eye. And I actually took Jake off. He had his, whatever, 8 overs or whatever, and I brought Gareth on for a couple of overs, and Gareth got a couple of wickets.
Yes.
So I made the right decision. And he gave me a volley of abuse, as brothers do in the changing rooms. You know, you're standing captain, called me every name under the sun, never spoke to me for a week until the diplomat of Altdale, Coffee and Anne, Kez come back the next week and made sure we shook hands and carried on. But no, it was another one. We were just better than them. I think Curtis had a good day that day, did he?
Yeah.
He did, yeah.
What did he get? 5 and
5 for
61.
61, yeah.
Yes. Curtis was class. Curtis had. It was never a bad game. He never had a bad game, Curtis. Even if he got 1 or 2 wickets or a 20-wicket bat, you'd think, no, he's not really done much. But everybody would take that. Curtis was quality. And I remember I fielded first slip all through that season, and he was the one that you thought, it's coming to me, it's coming to me, it's coming to me. Neil, you bowled a lot of Yorkers, especially later on. I couldn't check. I mean, I wouldn't know. But I reckon a lot of your dismissals were bowled or LB. JT, very similar because he bowled wicket to wicket.
Yeah.
And Jake bowled back of length and aggressively, and he was, I hate to say he's your brother, but he was brilliant. But Curtis was the one, if he dropped the pace off a bit, he'd get a lot of wickets. Just length. And he was quality. And
that's right.
Second half of that season, Curtis just went ridiculous, didn't he?
Yeah.
And that was one of the games he would have done.
It's a good point, actually. And whilst we're on it, I guess it's worth. I've not spoken about any of the players really, and I was waiting to the end really to summarise that. But Curtis, we were so lucky to have Curtis, but there's a reason that he wanted to be at that club. It wasn't the fact. He would get a ball and he would get a bat every week, which is a lot to be said. But there's a reason that he wanted to be at Walton Le Dale, and I think he enjoyed playing in that team with some good lads, and that's why we kept him happy. And there's a lot to be said for that in amateur sport. It's not always about playing at the top level. It's about having a laugh with your mates, and that's what we created. That in those few seasons, I felt that's what I felt about it, and that's why we kept good players like Kurt, like Aney, like Hines, and that's why we did so well.
Yeah, absolutely, couldn't agree more. Perfectly summed up. And once again, we roll over to next week, and we make the trip across Preston to Whittingham and Goosner. One of my, actually, and this might come as a shock to you three, actually one of my favourite grounds from a picturesque point of view. On a lovely day, there's no better place to be than Whittingham. Unfortunately, this wasn't a lovely day. It was a horrible, showery, drizzly day, and we turned up and there was nobody in sight. Covers were on, thankfully, which is sometimes
old
strange.
wooden roofs.
They were quite old, sort of slattered covers. Yeah, they're not the best of condition, but at least they were on. But I think a lot of us were sort of milling around, and I know I took some photos that day of us milling around beforehand, and we were there, let's say, an hour before, and I think nobody from Whittingham tipped up till about quarter of an hour to go, and we were like, is this going to get on or not? Could this knacker us here? Luckily, it did get on. And again, Whittingham this time won the toss and elected to bat. Probably suited us. 136 all out, to which we knocked it off for 6. My overriding memory of this, again, I'll touch on it more in the batting, was again feeling a little bit apprehensive towards the end. And I think, Sam, again, you were involved in seeing us over the line. But basically, from a batting perspective, from a bowling perspective, Whittingham, we discussed it in the first one, were either very hit or very miss. This time, actually, funnily enough, they were somewhere in the middle. From a bowling perspective, it was very much shared around. I think I came on towards the end and got a few wickets as per the mop, as we've discussed. But it was a very even game, really, and I can just remember it being just one of those that was quite evenly balanced.
Is this the game, right? It might be way off the mark. Is this the game where Is it Polly? Imran Polly?
Imran Valley. So it wasn't
Right.
Imran Polly. Yeah. It could have been. Yes.
Right. He went to town on Curtis.
Yes. Yes.
He went to town on
Spot on.
Curtis, biffed him for plenty early on. I think actually, if memory serves me right, did Dawson play that game?
He did. He'd sniffed the
He
winners'
sniffed
medal the
promotion,
second
didn't
half
he?
of the
Yeah.
season. Yeah, typical Dawson.
Dawson played and Curtis played, and they got took for plenty early on, and he was about 50. No, I wouldn't say 50. I don't know. They only made whatever.
He got 37, but he got 6 4s and 1 6. And I do remember that, Sam, that he got
Yeah,
away to an absolute.
I remember we
fire.
pegged it back well,
Yeah.
and we what was looking at something like maybe 200 ended up being what 140. Whatever it was.
Yeah, 136. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, it was. That was that game because the year before I kept, and it was horrendous. It was horrendous because Whitting, one of them teams, they'd nail you.
Yeah.
If they could, they'd nail you. But short boundary, left hand side, they'd nail you. And that Imran Valley, Imran Polly, whatever, he nailed us, and then we pegged it back and chased a manageable total.
I think that's it's interesting, and I'll give you. I remember it. I do remember it now. You talk about it all. I think that's probably one mistake I made in that game. Is if you look at the figures, I kept Curtis on for 10 overs. Now he should have never bowled 10 overs, But it's tough when you've got a lad who's taken 6 wickets the week before, and this is that's what's hard about the whole captaincy job, and that's why you're learning as you go. So, I mean, I remember it was a better day for the slower bowlers, as that clearly shows.
Yeah.
So we should have had maybe G or John or Neil on a little bit sooner on that day. So they probably got a few too many runs actually in the end of it. But we pulled it back.
Wicket though, would it?
It was a bad wicket.
It was a very damn wicket.
It was very damp, but it actually, I think it played a little bit better than what it looked, but it was quite a slow wicket.
Right, we're minefield later on.
Well, we'll go on to the batting, and Heinze chipped in with a 46. Because I was saying last week, I was quite surprised by the relatively low number of 50s he had, but he got a lot of 40s as well. So 46 for Heinze, 23 for Curtis, and then again a really solid finishing partnership of 21 not out from Sam Bolton and 17 not out from Gareth Winstanley, and again grinding it out, getting us over the line, and again pattern emerging like that. That when the chips were down, when I think we'd lost a couple of quick wickets if I remember rightly. Pete Ingham was playing that day and got a duck, which I think might have been quite a quick one. I just got the memory that we lost a couple of quick wickets and there was a little bit of panic, and you and Gareth really did solidify that, Sam, and saw us home relatively comfortably. 4 wickets. I think most clubs would take a 4-wicket win.
Yeah, I think what had happened was I went in and then we lost Curtis and we lost Pete, and then I managed to, me and Gareth put on maybe, I don't know, 35, 40 to get us home. I struggled that year with a bat, and listen, I'm not anywhere near as good as Curtis and Ernie and Heinze and Kez. I'm not too shy to say it. It is what it is. But a lot of the time it would be like Sam Bolton, DMB did not bat because Heinze would get the runs, or Curtis would get the runs, or Kez, or whoever it may be. And I think actually one time in the season I went down to seconds because I needed to get a bit of form, what have you. Bit of bat and a bit of ball. I bowled a little bit before that, as you mentioned, but I never really done nothing with a bat all year. Me and Scott were founder members of the Panic Room, as you know. And no, that was one of the games where you managed to just do your little bit and contribute to what is a very, very good team and stuff. So that was pretty pleasing. But yeah, we were in a bit of a sticky mess that one, because we probably would have knocked it off. Who knows? But it would 6 down or whatever we were, would have been tough.
Yeah, I think it's exactly what we've gone back to. If it wasn't you doing that, it was Naz, or if it wasn't Naz, it was G, or if it wasn't G, it was Scott getting those 20s. And the overriding thing for me is if everybody gets 20 or 25, you win a lot of games at that level. And I think we had a lot of that. Myself included, didn't have a good season with the bat, but if you look at that, 18 and 90 gets 46, so it's 70 before we've lost the first wicket, which is big at our level. So it's not always about the runs you score; it's about occupying the crease, and I think we did that. You know, we did that really well, particularly in the middle order that season.
We're going to move on to the next game, which was a real important game. And Sam, you've talked about a game where you thought, that's it, we've won it. This was my game. This was the game that I came away thinking, that's it, boys. We're going to do well to throw this away from here. We'd got hammered by Thornton Cleveland's at home, and Thornton Cleveland's went on to finish second in the league this year. And Thornton won the toss and elected to bat on what I seem to remember was a boiling hot day at Illawarra. An absolute road of a deck. And we bowled them all out for 117. And all I can remember was I took a decent catch off Jake early doors off the youngster Josh Sackfield, who has actually gone on to be a high quality batsman as of last season. And the other thing I can remember is an absolute specky catch yourself, Sam, took at slip, which Scott tried to bring up last week, and we had to remind him it was the second match, not the first one, off Jeremy Newman, who we knew was a quality bat for them as well. And I don't think we ever gave him any room to breathe that day. Thomas Williams opening up got 36 for him, but after that, Johnny Bassett 11 got 19. And
who won the toss?
They won the toss and decided to bat.
Well, fair play then. No, I was just gonna say, because it was that good of a deck, I was interested to think would we have stuck him in?
Yeah.
But as it was, anyway.
Yeah, and as I say, we just didn't give him any room to breathe at all. And realistically, I mean, Jake's bowled 13 overs and gone at 1.85 an over. Curtis actually was probably the most expensive, going at 4.75. G, his usual frugal best. Pick of the bowlers, myself and JT, 4 for 12 for myself and 3 for 3 for JT off 6 overs. And, you know, bottom line is there's a little bit of moppage going on there. But, again, just showing that strength in depth of bowling.
Yeah, definitely. They were a decent side, and you know, to keep them down to that sort of total was a really good achievement. I remember it being a long, hard slog that day. It felt like. I mean, if you look at 117 off 42 overs on a road, you know, with a short boundary, I mean, that is some heavy going in that heat. And I think that probably showed in the second innings. I remember we thought we'd done really well, and we were on the brink of thinking, how have we kept them down to that score, you know? And I think we were all quite tired, it felt like.
I remember that. Innings. I remember that. Jay, my brother, again, not trying to pump him up or anything, because I'd never do it, because we don't see eye to eye too much. But he bowled, he just kept running and running and running and running, and I kept thinking, what is he doing? You know what I mean? Did he bowl 13 off the reel? I'm sure he did.
I'm pretty sure he did bowl.
He bowled something like 13 off the reel, and that was Jake. He just had like this, I mean, wiry little skinny bones and body, and he just kept running and running. And he'd be disappointed, Jake, if he didn't bowl 24 overs in it. He was that type of person, like you say, compared to. You're used to like wince if you get a wicket. You think, oh God, what's he going to fire out? But he was hard work to manage. He would probably the most hated person in that division, unless you're Whatley Dale, but you pick him every day of the week, because for them games, he just run and run and run, and he just that game. What was his figures? 13 overs.
He went at 1.85 and over 13 overs, 6 maidens, 1 for 24.
So like Kes said, it was a slog, but you got to have the lads to slog it for you, haven't you?
Absolutely.
Neil comes in at the end and like cleans up. Curtis bowls length. JT bowl wicket to wicket, and Jake just run all day for you.
From a batting perspective, Hines 43, again a solid 43 from Hines. I can remember him batting really well, and he got out to Jeremy Newman, and I seem to remember he felt he was on for a big one that day. Well, as big as you can get when you're chasing 117. But but I do remember Naz 27 not out, batting at number 4. And again, an absolute grinder. And Naz isn't known for his outrageous innings. Don't get me wrong; he is a bit of a grinder in terms of his batting style. But I do remember, particularly that day, him coming off and literally us all lining up and giving him a massive pat on the back as to how he played that innings and saw us over the line.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Did Sam Newton get any?
14, yeah.
14,
Sam got a few,
Yeah, my memory's better than it. I think it is. Yeah,
I think
got a few, didn't he?
I think Sam and Naz's partnership obviously was the match-winning one, in that Sam got 14 but off 44 balls. So what they did is they really stabilised it at that point, and you start getting less nervous. I thought when Hines went, Curtis went early, Sam went. I honestly remember sitting there thinking, we're going to chuck this game away here. I really, really did. I really did. And, I was on 10 trucks. I remember it, and Naz's knock was great, and what a top guy, Naz was always good fun for me, and I could always rely on having a chat with Naz about things, and he stepped up to the mark when he was needed to, and talking about competitors, what a little competitor Naz was, and probably still is. But had some great days with Naz, and I do remember that knock. It was a really gritty one, and won us again.
And we've got to say, we were always in the pub early. What I do remember is that we went round the corner from Illawong. We had a drink at Thornton Cleavers, and do I remember us going round the corner to the pub round the corner as well for one before we headed off back as well? Because I think certainly in my memory is that we felt that good about it, and it's a relatively early finish again, that we were really in the mood for celebrating for that one. So toppling the team that finished second in the league so easily was far and away a real standout result. And as I said, for me, that was the moment that I really felt convinced that the league was ours. We move on from there to BAC Preston, who we'd rolled pretty easily in the first game. Lo and behold, we did it again. Although 110 all out from BAC, they've got up to a total there similar to what Cleveland's have posted against us, but nothing really to write home about in terms of their performance. Bowling wise, myself 6 for 30, JT again 2 for 8, really frugal figures. Nobody really went for more than 3 and over, and I think it was just one of these games that we had to get through. Against one of the bottom teams, you don't want to throw it away against somebody like that after beating somebody like Thornton Cleveland the week before.
Yeah, I think though at that point in time, we never ever even thought about losing a game like that. I don't want to sound cocky about it, but I think it would have been hard to beat us at that stage in the season, being BAC. They actually started off really well that game, didn't they? They got a few runs early on. But at no point in that game did I feel that they would ever be able to beat us, to be fair. And I think that's where we got to with the performances in the previous games.
And I think, again, looking at the batting, another circumstance where we've obviously gone out and gone super confident we're going to knock this off. Curtis opened up. You dropped yourself down a bit that day, Kez. Curtis opened up 39 off 38, and Hines is smashed 63 off 48 balls, 7 fours, 4 sixes. Strike rate of 131.25, and again, really gone at it in the mindset of we're just going to get over the line here and we're just going to win it convincingly, and so it happened.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think at that point for me, I'd have loved to get back into some form and go and have a bat at BAC on a good track, which you generally were. But for me, I hadn't been getting the runs, and Curtis was scoring a lot of runs. So was Ainsey, and they had the little competition between them, Ernie, Curtis and Hines, and good luck to him. So I thought, I'll let Curtis have a do, and that's what we did, and I think as I touched on before, I think all the lads had that, and Ainsey touched on it last week. All the lads had some healthy competition that season, and it wasn't infighting. We all knew that we were wanting to achieve winning that league, which we all pulled together and do. So there wasn't a lot of moaning. People just got on with it and knew the place, and we gave people chances when it was right. So That's part of being a winning side. I think you've got to have some harmony amongst your players, and we had that balance.
We're going to move on next one, which was a key match, so to speak. It was at home to Torrizome. However, the match didn't happen. It was called off. Now, we've all discussed this before this podcast, and we have the opinion that this was the match that secured us promotion. If we got called off, and depending on other results, we had secured promotion. Now, after looking back at the games from our division on that day, we were one of only 2 games that were cancelled. I know we've had a laugh about it and said that, you know, we potentially cancelled it a little bit premature. I think at that point we certainly hadn't had the drainage done on the wreck, and let's say it wasn't the quickest drying of grounds. I think that would be gross understatement. Actually, it was always a very wet ground, particularly in certain areas, and I think, you know, we would never. We were performing so well at this stage that I don't think we would ever have called a game off purposefully. However, let's just say the conditions suited us, and we ended up getting the result that day that we wanted.
Yeah, I think
there was a bit of gamesmanship from what we know, weren't there?
Yeah, I mean, if I was to be honest, then we did like playing our cricket, and I don't think we would have ever purposely got a game called off, and that wasn't the case that day at all. But being captain and when you're in those positions, you know, ultimately the ground was very, very wet. It wasn't conducive to a good game of cricket that suited our style. And therefore, you're playing Torrizome, who were, you know, we saw what happened in the first game. You know, they can score runs very quickly, and suddenly that game gets reduced. And ultimately, it wasn't that fit. So we would have really had to push ourselves to say, okay, Torrizome, we're happy to play in these poor conditions. And maybe we would have got that game on. But in my mind, I thought we want to secure promotion to that next division. And the ground isn't right. So why should we push ourselves to play? Plus the fact North End were at home that day. No, that wasn't the reason. But it wasn't right. It wasn't right. And I know a few of the lads, like John, like a few of the others, were saying, come on, we can get the game on. And maybe we could have tried a bit more, but sensibly, I thought the right choice was to say, that ground is not fit today. And I don't think it was.
Remember, they had a fella ringing up from up north. We always got to ground early, didn't we? Say 11:30, 12 bells for a bit of a bit of a net, and then obviously get things sorted, and then our newfound ritual of a bit of a warm up. And we had a fella on from Torrizome ringing up saying, "Oh, is it worth coming down? Is it worth coming down?" And myself and Kez, obviously captain and vice at the time, were saying, listen, we don't know. Obviously, John Taylor was groundsman at the time. It's saturated in water, but he's saying it's on. Perfect day for John's little outswingers. And I remember me and Kez specifically. I'm not gonna lie. Why not? They finished 50 points behind us, so who cares? We had a conversation, me and Kez, on the outfield, and we were just like, listen, if they don't beat us today, we're up. 2 points apiece, we're up. If we get this game on, get beat, we probably would have still got up anyway, but, you know, you're running the risk, and it was one of them where we tried our best to get it on, but it never happened. Such is life.
We're going to move on to Fylde away now, and I was on holiday for this one. Whaltedale won the toss and elected to field, back to winning the toss, Kez, after I think a couple of weeks of not winning the toss. Fylde 142 all out, reasonable score. Fylde's usually a good deck though, but it is quite a big ground sometimes, depending on where they put the wicket. Whaltedale 145 for 4, so it quite easily knocked off. Now, obviously I wasn't there, so my knowledge of this game isn't great. Curtis 6 for 28, the standout bowler. However, in the field, my memory of something is quite good in terms of it being relayed over and over again, which was, I believe, a catch by Sam Newton, or am I on the wrong game? I might be on the wrong game. I thought there was a catch by Sam Newton where it hit him where it hurts, but looking at the batters, that might not be the case.
No,
So,
it was. I don't think it wasn't that game, but it was Richard Gallagher. I think it was the year before potentially.
It was the year before, right? Okay.
It was the year before, and whilst it's a review, let's get Sam whilst we can. It was a fantastic catch, pouched in between his nudger, basically, his member.
Yeah, he
basically.
caught it right on top at Watsit, didn't
he? He did, yeah, he did. And as Sam can testify, they were swollen, weren't they, Sam?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they were bigger when I had them in my mouth.
But just from a point of view of their batting, Curtis really did do some damage at the top of the order. Jake 1 wicket and Curtis 3 of the top 4. Fylde had a little bit of a resurgence in the middle order. The same Richard Gallagher 14, Tom Duerden 30, Robin Kilner 18. Got him up to, we were saying last week, Heinzie was saying 150 at the Rec is generally a defendable total.
Yeah.
And I would say 150 anywhere is a defendable total. So 142 generally is a par score. But 145 for 4, relatively easy. Hines 42, and Curtis again. We said Curtis had an absolute storm in second half, and certainly end of the season. 74, 7 4s and 2 6s. Really does make it look like a relatively easy.
I had a look at this game. I'm not a cricket badger like some people. I had a look at this one because I couldn't remember whether Sam got done in these nether regions or not. And it wasn't that year. But that game, they made 120 or 118 for however many, or 44 overs.
Yeah.
So we kept it was one of them games where it was flat, decent batting track, but we kept them down and down and down. And I think Curtis bowled plenty of overs, got obviously a lot of wickets. Jake bowled plenty of overs, and Johnny Taylor bowled plenty of overs. And it was more of a game of containing them rather than taking the wickets. I mean, we got them all out in the end, but I think they were probably trying to biff it a bit.
Yeah.
And it was one of them sort of, when you get like a long day in the field and a bit of a slog. That was one of them. I think I remember.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's right. And also, it was we replaced the mopping Neil with Dawes, who came on at the end and clean bowled 2 blokes. But interestingly, I've just picked up on this, and just going back to Fylde, they were an okay set of lads actually, and just to mention them, I think they were quite similar to us in some ways, and I got on really well with their captain, the older bloke John Marsh. He was a lovely bloke, and he always said after the game, "I'll buy you a beer, Sean," and he was a real gentleman. And it was a pleasure to go and play at Fylde. It was a lovely ground, really. I enjoyed playing at Fylde. But they were a good set of lads, and I've just realised. So what happened is this was the point in time. Curtis had his eye on the averages, you see. So second innings, I remember Curtis saying, "I don't mind batting a bit lower down." And as you can see, he batted at what we're looking at 5. Curtis, he let Sam go in ahead of him.
Didn't help him. He did a duck, Sam.
Yeah, I did well that day.
Yeah,
Golden duck.
Bowled by Richard Gallagher.
Golden duck.
Bit of dirty left arm spin and done for you, Sam. Absolutely.
There was also one for not very many in the other innings. The chipping in with the wickets. But another golden duck to add to the many more that I had.
That's right. Yeah, but I remember the knock from Curtis that day. Again, he just hit his straps, hadn't he, at the right time for us. And he obviously had his eyes on a few not outs, and again he turned up with the goods. So a very good win at Fylde.
Absolutely, and again you come home. That drive back from the Fylde coast is also much sweeter for getting back to the pub.
Absolutely.
We go on to the first match in September, which was Norcross at home, and I think a match all of us remember, as this was the match that we clinched the league title. And Norcross, unfortunately, were down near the bottom of the table. And again, it's a relatively convincing victory down at the Rec. Norcross 125 all out. Again, stuck in first, and as we've said, that's below par for the Rec at 150 normally. Curtis again, we said, on form, 4 wickets, up for 27 runs. So again, frugal as well, and everybody else chipping in with wickets. So it was a real, again, we've talked about it previously, that real team performance, everybody contributing. Only real standout batters: Chris Lester 24, Ben Hislop 22. The evergreen Andy Lester, who's still going and still haunting me now, 14 not out. So yeah, 125 was never really going to be a defendable total. But what I will say again is we keep seeing these recurring patterns. And again, Naz and Sam at the end grinding it out, because again, we've ended up, albeit 4 wickets down, but it was almost like, are we going to get over the line? Are we going to get over the line? And you two sort of in the middle order have got us over that line. And obviously Q, massive celebrations of imported Belgian beer. And it was just a defining moment. And Curtis 77 had yet another massive all-round game, and was just a real fine way to clinch that league title.
Yeah, it's my favourite moment ever in cricket, without a doubt. Like, Curtis had got plenty, so he got us off to, the best start. I remember going in, maybe needing 20, 25 to win. I don't know. And we knew we'd already won promotion, whatever. Knew if we won, we'd win league. And everyone's families were there, whatever, as we got closer and closer. I actually batting with Naz, who's now a very good friend, somebody I've known for a long, long time, played a lot of cricket with, a lot of respect for. And me and Naz were batting for a little bit, whatever, and he must have got 15 or something. I must have got 8, 9, something like that. I don't know. Not many. Wouldn't have been many.
Sam, you got 6. You're over
6? Oh, not that average down then. That average down to 4 now, not 6. But no, I remember just being sat there. It took a bit of a time, but you got to do it. And everyone would just congregate on the sidelines, whatever, and managed to hit winning runs. I think Kez run on like a madman,
Well, just as you touch on Kez
like David Pleat. You remember David Pleat?
I do have a memory. I do have a memory of Mr. Keeley. Am I not right in thinking that you ran on early? Did you not misjudge how many we needed to win, and you ran on, and we were all like, "Where's he going?"
I was poised like a coiled spring, ready to go, and thought we needed a few less than we did. I do remember that. But yeah, I mean, it was brilliant, and I was really pleased to see my mate Sam, who, it was really a joint effort between us for the years that I was captain. I enjoyed it because I enjoyed me and Sam. We talked about the game a lot off the field. And we did really take it seriously. We worked hard, and then our weekends were cricket and thinking about what do we do on a Saturday. So it was great for me to see Sam be there at the end, and also Naz. And what I would also say is, looking at the team that was out that day, how consistent did we keep the team that year? I mean, there was very few changes, unless people were on holiday. It was the same 11 most weeks. There was maybe 1 or 2 changes. And that was really key, I think, to making it a success. We all knew everybody's strengths, and that's why we did so well. So it was a brilliant moment. I'd like to say it was probably one of my most fond memories in cricket, definitely. And yeah, really good to remember.
And I think we mentioned about getting to the pub early. I think what was nice for me was the amount of time we just spent as a group of players, and like you said, family and friends had come down. Some of the lads who weren't playing that day and who weren't playing in second team had come down to watch. And I think for me, the amount of time we just spent on the outfield after the game, just celebrating as a group, having a drink, laughing, joking, taking pictures, that's the moment that it just... And I heard... I can't remember, somebody, a pro player said, I heard it on TV this week, saying it's moments like that, you want them to last forever. And it was Michael Vaughan about the Edgbaston test in 2005. And he felt he wanted to stay out there celebrating for longer, but he had to go and shake hands with the opposition, and then he had press duties. And it is those moments you want to sort of put in a bubble and keep, and you want them to last for long. For me, I can just remember thinking, I'm glad we're just all staying out here as a group, not just rushing into changing rooms to want to get to pub early. And yeah, we would have celebrated in pub, but we spent, I think, a good half an hour, 40 minutes just standing around, talking, laughing, photos, drinks on the outfield, just to soak it up a little bit.
I think for me, like we put a lot of effort into that. Now, listen, it's Wantledale Cricket Club, it's Division 3, Palace Shield. You know, we've not won the ICC Champions Trophy. You know, but to us, it's a big thing, isn't it? You know, we're a little club. We try our best. In fact, the first team had not got promoted for a long time. I don't know. Ainsley will know. Must be 10 years.
Yeah.
I think let me wrap my brains off. We went into Palace Shield in 2005.
2006, yeah.
6.
Yeah.
But the last year of the Chorley League would have been 2004, maybe 5.
Yeah.
And I think they cleaned up.
Yeah.
They won the League Cup and the Centenary Cup. So they won everything. And then in Palace Shield, after that, it was the best thing that could happen to the club because it keeps it going. They never won nothing for a long time because we were a small fish in a massive pond.
Yeah.
So all these little podcasts and like little things are all big for us because we're a little club. We punch well above our weight against Thornton and Cleveland seconds, Torrisholme seconds. So for us, it's a big thing. And I remember being stood on the outfield, pouring water on each other's heads and whatever, and having a good time because we'd achieved something special. And over a long period of time, Kez and myself have worked hard, and Ainsley worked hard, Neil have worked hard. I remember Gavin before the season saying, "You need to get your act together, you lot, because you're better than what you're giving up." You know,
spot on.
And we worked hard on it that year, and we got there in the end. And yeah, it was good moments to shake hands with pals that you shared a lot of good moments with. Me and Neil, you spent a lot of cricket together, you know, to shake hands at the end and say, you know, fucking hell, we've done it.
We've done it, absolutely.
It was good.
That was it, absolutely. So after all the celebrations died down, we move on to the last match of the season, which is away at Fulwood and Broughton at Our Ladies High School in Fulwood. And what I will say, and which was quite key in terms of us getting promotion and winning the league, Gareth Winstanley always had this saying. Sam, do you want to say it?
Got to get out of this league.
Got to get out of this league. And it was all, and I can remember him saying it at Our Ladies, and it might have been the season before, playing at a high school, in high school changing rooms with no pavilion, was never the greatest of experiences. And that's no slight on Fulwood and Broughton as a club. This was their second ground at the time. Luckily, it's not now. But it was just occasions like that. And unfortunately, we'd had some cry-offs in the last game of the season. I can't remember if people were going on holiday or whatever. And we tipped up with 9 men, which, considering we've been so consistent over the course of the season, seems a bit weird, really. But we tipped up with 9 men, and Fulwood had won the toss and had decided to have a bat. We bowled them all out for 81 inside 22 overs, 21.1 overs. And to continue this stellar end to the season, Curtis, 11 overs, 2 maidens, 8 for 46. And he just steamrolled them. He absolutely just steamrolled them. And Pete Riley, 27, Prital Ladd, 17, and Hunain Ahmed, 13, were the only ones who made double figures. And it was just... And I can distinctly remember we had Alex Cuffin that day, and Alex was the gun fielder of the second team, and unfortunately for Alex, usually got brought in as a fielder. but I can remember because of the open expanse, Alex was made to run and run and run that day, and took up a massive part of the field. However, he wasn't needed for that long, and it was just an awesome performance by Curtis.
Yeah. I think it was a bit of a shame. It was an anticlimax, really. This last game, in a way, and I remember it. It was. I wish we were kind of playing no disrespect to Fulwood, but they weren't at the strongest at that time.
Yeah.
It's the last game of the season, and we turned up with 9 men, so it was slightly disappointing, as you touched on, Neil. We didn't have that many options that day, and obviously Curtis bowled fantastic, and the two guys at the top, obviously Ernie and Hines, carrying on the form. Hines was blatantly looking for his not out there, 22 to Ernie's 59. But that kind of summed it up as a good finish. It was we wrapped that game up clinically and easily, didn't we? Even with 9 men.
83 inside 8 overs. Ernie just went mental. Go on, Sam.
Go on. There was something behind that. I'm sure we had 9 men because the seconds needed to stay up, didn't they?
There was something.
So I'm pretty sure.
I think that year.
Okay. Well, that would explain, and that's what's gone from my memory then in that case. But
so if memory serves right, anybody who could qualify to play for the seconds would have been tuned in. Now, obviously, we earned the right to do that as the first team. We'd got promoted. Second team needs to stay up. So I'm pretty sure Gareth play that game for us?
No,
first
Gareth
team?
could have gone down.
So I'm pretty sure he would have
Mac
played.
went down as well, actually.
Mac, Naz, Dawes would have. Well, he probably got his hands on the trophy, so. But no, I think the seconds would have had 11, and we went with 9, and well, the rest is history in terms of what we did that day. But yeah,
I think all in all, it was. I know Kes says it was a bit of an anticlimax, but in a way now with hindsight, and we can look back on it, what an absolutely wonderfully baffling way to end a championship season, tipping up at a club with 9 men, bowling them out for 81, and knocking it off inside 8 overs. Just
8 overs.
We knocked it off in 7.5 overs. 83 off 7.5 overs.
I can't remember that.
And
I do.
8 overs.
Inside 8.
What, 80 odd off 8 overs?
Yes.
Fucking. Who was that, Ernie?
Ernie 59.
Yeah,
Ernie 59.
59 not
He
out.
must have been off about 20, 30 balls.
I'll tell you what, Ernie, right? I said it before. He were a cocky little shit, but I love him to bits, me, Ernie. We're good friends. A lot of good days. Ernie brought something to the team, almost like a bit of an arrogance.
Yeah.
Like he didn't care. Like if you were going to biff a young bowler about, he didn't care. And if he went less than a run of ball, it weren't good enough. So he could be 80 odd off 100, and he'd go, nah, not good enough. And you go, what? But he was like that, Ernie. And he obviously was a new signing, and we butted him up and we battered him for a few years to come to us. He had that about him, Ernie, and he don't really get a mention because Hines got his 100, Curtis got his 6 for 5, Kes got 50, but Ernie was quality, so he will be watching because he's got nothing else to do. So you're all.
I think it was great, Ernie, and as you say, Sam, I think he brought a lot to that club, not just in terms of his mercurial talent with the bat, because once he got going, there was no stopping him. And 59 in 7 overs. I mean, come on, that's ridiculous. That is ridiculous.
I wouldn't even get on that Brian Lara, me.
But I think what Ernie brought and what I gave him the role of doing in that team was, look after the training drills. He loved all that. He loved working with the kids because of his primary school stuff. But he enjoyed it, and it did kind of make us more of a professional outfit than what we've been in the past. Even though it's amateur sport, you've got to compete hard, and And I think that's what he kind of brought. And you're right with his arrogance. He had that sort of cocky. If you're playing against him, you think, what a little shit.
Still do it now.
No, he was brilliant that season as well.
In terms, I'll tell you what we did, right? If you want to, you can edit it out, Neil, if you want. But the year before, we were ragtag.
Yeah.
To say the very best,
Yeah.
we were ragtag. We were all right, not very good, not very bad. We were middle of the road. We've been middle of the road for a good few years, and we played at Kirkham. And now I work at Kirkham now, and I drive past ground every day, and I think, how did that particular episode happen?
I think I know what you're going to talk about, and I'm quite happy to leave it in, Sam.
Right, okay. So I'll divulge them. So we play at Kirkham on a random Saturday, God knows when it is, and we tip up the 12:30, 1:15. The ground is saturated. The skies are black. It's never gonna, in a million years, gonna happen. This game, it's off. So because being the ragtag bunch that we were, we decided to have a few beers. Myself, 4 or 5 pints. Kaz, 2 or 3 pints because he's driving. Sammy Newton, 2 or 3 pints. Neil, think you might have had a pint. Johnny Taylor definitely had a couple of pints. Scott Newton had about 4 double vodkas. Right? About 3:30, you can imagine what's going to happen. The ground's green as grass. Beautiful England's green and pleasant land and all that. The skies are blue. Brilliant. We get stuck in and we get nailed all over. That day we played with 10 because Naz had turned up and said, I need to make a conference call to work. Never got out of his car. So we batted with 10, fielded with 10, we got nailed. Kirkham went down, and that was the year before we went up.
Yeah.
Kez and me used to travel because he used to chaperone me everywhere because, whatever. And Kez was fuming on the way home. Like, what are we doing? We're so pathetic, this, that, and the other. And then I think that set the stall out for the next year.
Yeah.
We need to take this more seriously, do whatever, but we can't keep tossing it off, if you would. And that's why we were. We went from a team who tossed it off to won league by. How many points did we get? 220, 230.
Yeah, it was a decent distance to Thornton Cleveland's in second, absolutely. And I echo what you said, Sam. And I think exactly what Kez said in terms of Aney doing the drills, the warm up drills. You, Sam, had gone out and got us the training kit that Kez is so proudly still modelling now. And we looked and performed like a team, and I think that's probably the best compliment I can give us as a team, that we were a team, we practiced like a team, we performed like a team, and I'd like to think most of the season we behaved like a team. And I think the big thing for me was after that Norcross game when we won the league, and I put some glowing messages on Facebook, the amount of praise that we got back as a club and as a team, not just individuals, but as a team that we got from other clubs and other players that I knew well, I think went a long way to showing the impression we'd made on people, not just from a cricketing point of view, but from a whole round club point of view that year.
Yeah, absolutely, Neil. I think I echo what you say there. I think it was all that stuff. It was all the peripheral stuff. Like we did all train really hard. We decided that we were going to do that, and I remember spending days in the evenings down there with lads who wanted to have a knock and have a train, and we took it serious. And all the kit side was a bit of fun, but it makes it a bit more sort of professional, doesn't it? And look at where you are now with the kits that we get now. It's great. I'd just also like to add that I think that season we did get a lot of stuff from the 2020 that year as well. And whilst that isn't part of this review, I think that added to how we were as a team, and it allowed people to have a knock during the week and get together during the week. And that was a massive thing, and a lot of the teams in the other leagues thought, who the hell are Whateley Dale? Why are these lot in finals day? What's going on? Do you know what I mean? And I think that was all really helpful for the club and the title push.
They absolutely complemented each other perfectly well, because I couldn't agree more. What I'm going to do just to wrap it up is just go through some of the statistics from the players from that season. Obviously, as we said, Heinze finished top run scorer and broke the league record. Finished the season in total with 1,094 runs at an average of 64. Curtis 720 runs at an average of 37. Ernie 634 runs at an average of 35. So there were the top runs. For yourself, Kez, 384 runs at an average of 19. So those were the real top performers with the bat. I'm just going to switch it to the bowling. 2015 wickets. Just bear with me. So Curtis Morris, 48 wickets, with an average of 13.31. Jake, 45 wickets at an average of 13.4, so very similar them two. JT, 39 wickets at an average of 15.79, slightly more costly. And myself, 38 wickets at an average of 8.63. So trophy winners that year, obviously Heinze won the league averages for the batting. Scott won the wicket-keeping award, as we mentioned last week. And I missed out by about 2 runs to Jeremy Newman in the bowling awards. And it would have been great to have a clean sweep, but as we mentioned before, that's not what we were in it for, and we got the main prize. And we had a very pleasant evening at the league presentation night, and we all, again, got the minibus and carried on that team ethos. Even to that, we carried on that team ethos. We went as a team on a minibus and had a damn good night, let's face it. So yeah.
Kez, you tell them what happened that night.
I mean, it was a great evening. So much so that I decided to misplace my mobile phone at one point in time. To which I was asleep in Sam's house, and he was ringing Avocab to say, "Have you got my mate's mobile phone?" But there was. I remember there was some interesting conversations that night, and we were all really proud, and everybody was there, all dressed up in the suits, and it was great. And we'd never been to. I think it was Crofty who was presenting the awards that night.
Tom Smith.
That was it. Sorry, Tom Smith.
Well done, Kez.
Sorry, and that was. It was great. It was a great evening. I remember there was some interesting characters there. All those people that you hear about, your Jeff Sheards, and all those type of blokes. They were all there. Pete Malloy's, and everyone was there. And it was just a great evening to get together and celebrate what we'd achieved as a club, but as friends as well.
Yeah.
And that was the main thing for me. It was a great evening.
Excellent.
But just to touch on, the lads, and fantastic performances, and I've not spoke much about Heinze because he talks for himself in terms of what he did, and I think you'll go a long way to see batting like Heinze did and had that season. He was in the zone, and he was fantastic, and he was great to bat with. I really enjoyed our opening partnership together. It was great. And brilliant for him, and 925 runs in the league campaign is some going. So that was a major achievement.
I think the biggest thing that I could always say when I was watching Heinze that season is, and this sometimes can be the biggest compliment you can pay for somebody who's in such form, is it was a shot when he didn't get a decent score. Whether that was, even a 40 or something like that. If you got out for under 40, it was actually a shock that season that he hadn't gone on to get a decent score. And
do you know what, with Heinze obviously class. So I love him to bits. He's one of my very good friends and that. But he worked hard.
Yeah.
He didn't just become a decent batsman. He worked hard. Not in that year, but a few years before. So he played at Orton in 2008, 9, or I don't know the years, but he played for Orton, and he was like a middle order batsman and an opening bowler, and then he come back to Otterdale, and he never bowled. He whatever yips or whatever. I don't know. I'm so sorry.
Cobras.
Yeah. But he went from becoming an all-rounder to the best batsman in that league by a mile.
Yeah.
And he worked hard at it, whether it be T20 or netting or whatever. He just... we were there at Grimsby when he got his first ton in 2014.
Yeah.
And he just ripped it off to me. He was quality. Good lad, Hines.
Yeah.
So it's a really good. I don't want to keep us, but it's a really good point that Ainsey wasn't the natural talent like Curtis is and Ernie is.
Yeah.
He did work really hard, and he netted more than anybody. And he thought about the game so much, whereas someone like Ernie just turned up and he'd probably had 8 pints the night before, but he'd smashed 60 off 20 balls. Ainsey was different to that, so yeah. But it's interesting that we had a record performer in Hines. But yeah, how many other guys were in that top 10 run scoring and wicket takers? Yeah. So it showed what an all-round team we had. And some great captaincy and vice captaincy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Always a team player in Mr. Bolton. Absolutely. Yeah. But on that note, guys, I thank you two for coming on, as I did with Scott and Ainsey last week. It's been great to look back on a season that had just about everything. So it's been a real pleasant experience, and hopefully at some point over these podcasts, what we're going to aim to do is try and get as many of that 2015 season back for a get together, whether it be online. Hopefully, when this all ends, we'll get everybody together in person, but even just get everybody back together online to share more memories, because I'm sure there's more that we haven't touched on. And try and get as many people back together as possible to try and do that. So we're going to plan that, and hopefully that'll be the case. But once again, you two, thanks for coming on. Appreciate it. DM, thanks again for co-hosting with me. Appreciate that. And we'll see you again soon, everybody. Thanks for watching. This has been the Up the Dale podcast, part 2 of the 2015 Champions Season Review, and we'll see you again soon.